Back in November 2018 I was arrested at work in front of my boss and co-workers. It was the most humiliating thing I've ever experienced. I later learned at the police station that I was being charged with multiple felonies. This came as a huge surprise. Luckily, I was able to keep my wits and lawyer up instead of speaking with a detective. For $13,000, which completely wiped my savings, I was able to retain a criminal defense attorney. However, it cost me everything, and I was unable to pay my bond. This resulted in me staying in jail for a total of 54 days. At a status hearing, my attorney presented video evidence of me gassing up my car 3 hours away from where the crimes took place, and I ended up having all my charges dismissed. When I finally got out, I learned that I had lost my job, was in the process of being evicted, and my son was in the state's care. His mother is an addict and I haven't spoken to my own parents in nearly 15 years. They wouldn't let him go to my girlfriend because they didn't consider her family. Since my release, I've learned that I can't sue the police, and no one gives a crap that I was locked up for 54 days because the detective did poor investigation work. I've gone to the local press about this and was told that what happened to me happens quite a bit. They took down my info but never followed up. So what I did was create a website sharing my story. I also uploaded the police report and some other documents from the discovery. Literally, the only reason why I was arrested was because an eyewitness said they saw me. If the detective had done his job, he could have verified that I wasn't even in town on the day the crimes took place. This is what pisses me off the most. My life was ruined because of a lazy employee. I'm writing this now because my website is now ranked number 2 on the first page of search results when you type in my town's name. I live in a touristy town and we attract a lot of visitors over the summer. My web traffic has more than quadrupled and apparently it's gotten someone high up's attention. I received a cease and desist letter recently, which I showed to my attorney. He said sharing my experience online isn't illegal and that everything I had stated was a factor my own opinion, protecting me from a defamation lawsuit. Yesterday I received a visit from 2 officers and the detective who had arrested me. He apologized, stating, "Mistakes can happen." They then talked to me about my website and asked if I could remove it. I said I would delete it on the condition that the detective leave his job and never do police work again. Suffice to say, that isn't happening. After the visit I received, I'm more pissed off that the only reason the detective apologized to me was to get me to take down my website. I don't plan to, and the only one supporting this is my girlfriend. My friends think I'm being spiteful and have suggested that I just delete it. Am I the idiot for keeping my website up? Not the idiot at all, and pretty sure you do have a case for a lawsuit against the police. The S&D and the police visit are more evidence to help your case. There is nothing illegal about having a website showing gross incompetence and sharing your story. I would give the city an offer to take down the site. 1. They pay you to take over the site or they get lost. Make sure you update the site with the current happenings. Post the S&D to the site and post that the arresting detective visited you with 2 officers to apologize. That's called intimidation. They tried to scare you to get their way. Not the idiot, that detective is a jerk. He ruined your life and doesn't have any remorse and is probably embarrassed that his slip-up is being put on blast. People have a right to know this injustice took place in your town. Keep up the website and do whatever is best for you. People that are telling you that you're being spiteful for this have no idea what you went through and shouldn't be judging whatsoever. If anything, they should be supporting you and happy that you're fighting back a system that greatly wronged you. Not the idiot. I have a friend whose spouse tried to murder her and their kids. Spouse was a cop and all of them rallied around him. Didn't investigate, painted her as insane, the usual. He tried to do horrible thing to their kids and nobody cared. She dreams every day of suing them, of forcing the crappy and corrupt cops to quit, of changing the system so that it doesn't protect the dirty cops. She'll never get to make them pay. Money is the only way these vile people and horrible institutions learn. In June, I met a guy we'll call Chris on Tinder. We met up for dinner and had a great time and got to know each other. He told me he was recently divorced and divulged that the reason was that his wife wanted kids and he didn't. This was great because I mentioned being child-free in my profile. I'm 31, so this comes up a lot. We met up again and ended up seeing each other a couple of times a week and sleeping together for a little over a month before he showed up in my Facebook people you may know, and he was very clearly married with a kid and wife. I confronted Chris and of course ended things, and he begged me not to tell his wife before he could because she's pregnant and he wants to be the one to tell her. I said I'd give him a week. Within the week, his wife messaged me on Facebook and said he told her what happened, and I gave her the full story. I told her I was sorry he betrayed her like this and fooled me, and that I of course never would have started dating a married man. As we were winding down the conversation, she then told me she wanted me to apologize for sleeping with her husband and that she needed that for closure. For me, this was a record scratch moment. I did nothing wrong here. I had no idea this man was married, let alone had a kid and one on the way. When I found out, I confronted him immediately, broke up with him immediately, and forced his hand in telling his wife. There is nothing on my conscience here. I was lied to too. I am not going to apologize because I feel like it's disrespectful to me to try to make me accept blame. Am I the idiot for not being willing to apologize? I don't know this woman, and her feelings here don't have more value than mine do to me. I don't want to debase myself with the kind of apology she wants, and she's furious and spamming me with messages because I'm unrepentant. No idiots here, she likely doesn't comprehend exactly how things went down. It's not easy to take it all in when something this big happens out of the blue. You're correct that you did the right thing and don't owe her an apology. However, personally, if it were me, I would just do it. You're probably never gonna speak to her again, so it's not worth fighting with her about something so minor. She has enough on her plate right now. I would probably go with something like, "I'm sorry I unknowingly slept with your husband." This is tough, but I'm going to go with no idiots here, except for Chris. She is obviously feeling, rightly, incredibly hurt and bettered, but ultimately her husband did that, it you. He made the conscious choice to involve you in his crappy behavior, and that's not your fault. That said, moving forward, Google anyone you get involved with. I went on 2 Tinder dates with a single guy who turned out to have a wife and a girlfriend and 2 Facebook profiles. People can be absolute trash. Not the idiot. You didn't even know, nor was him cheating your fault. You are not to blame and have nothing to apologize or repent for. She should be expecting an apology from him, not you, and he should be apologizing to both of you. Apologizing would be allowing her to blame you so she could more easily accept the fact that her husband cheated. Being an adult is about not letting people guilt or pressure you into doing something like apologizing just because it's the easy thing to do when it isn't necessarily the right choice. For starters, I just want to say I, 21, love my mom, 49. I think for the most part she is a great lady, though she has a fear of ending up alone, which oftentimes means she stays with men too long and disregards us. Now this attribute wasn't too bad until she met her now fiancé David. David is not my cup of tea. Before my mom and him were together, my mother and I never fought, but David would constantly instigate fights between us for no reason. Literally one time he told my mom I was being disrespectful for going to a school-sponsored event and not getting home right on time because the buses were late. He also makes terribly rude remarks to my siblings and I, most of them being grossly stereotypical and ableist. My brother has a mental disability, which David perceives as him being lazy. He also makes rude remarks to my mom a lot, but does it under the guise of being nice or helpful, which basically means he says it with a smile. He was not very nice to his animals either, which I think is disgusting, but luckily he doesn't have any at the moment, so I don't need to worry. I told my mom from the beginning, when I was 17, that I didn't like him, and she told me she wouldn't sacrifice my happiness for hers. So now since I'm an adult I usually just leave her be. The other day, though, we were talking about a friend of hers who is basically emotionally abusing one of her kids to appease a man. My mom said, "Ugh, it's just terrible. I would never let a man treat my kids like that or come between us." Which I just laughed at. She got irritated at that and asked why I laughed, and I just said that she might not have been as bad as her friend, but David does treat us disrespectfully, which you have chosen to ignore. I told her it's fine now, and you should hold your friend accountable, but you're also being a hypocrite. She freaked out, started crying and hung up. My brothers thanked me for saying something and said I was in the right. Well, my aunt called and said I'm an adult now, so it shouldn't be any of my concern what my mom does and who she dates. Which I guess is right. I don't know though, am I the idiot? I didn't even think what I said was that bad, and are all things I had said as a minor as well. Not the idiot. But speaking of acting like an adult, perhaps your mom should try it. Being criticized for being a hypocrite and for emotionally abandoning your children isn't cause to whine to your sister. Your mom needs to put on her big girl panties and deal with the consequences of her actions. As it sounds like your siblings are still having to deal with the toxic idiot David, you have every right to speak up since your mom won't be their advocate. And your aunt can F off if she doesn't like it. Not the idiot. She actually judges her friend who basically done the same thing as her. Your mother hypocrisy actually baffles me. Good job on calling her out OP. Most people often holds back when calling out their own parents' behavior. Your aunt is also a hypocrite. Telling people not to interfere with others' relationship, yet she also brown-nosing her way into your nuclear family's relation. Next time she said anything similar, just throw it back at her for basically being a hypocrite. Not the idiot. You didn't go out of your way to be an idiot about it. Your mother was being a flat-out hypocrite and you have every right to call her out on it. Especially if it's something that affected you as a kid. I don't doubt that she's not very self-aware, but even those kinds of people can usually see when their kids are being bullied and treated like crap. You're an adult now. They're right. You are. That means you don't have to hold your tongue anymore because they can't really punish you for speaking your mind or defending yourself and your siblings. Backstory: 3 years ago I had a little boy. In the year after birth, I gained 120 pounds. I was thin before pregnancy and after. About 4 months after giving birth, I started gaining the weight. I realized now I was in the midst of postpartum depression as well as an awful work environment. I'm working on losing the weight. My primary care physician is fully on board and has tested my numbers every 6 months to a year, and I'm perfectly healthy otherwise. I'm just really big at the moment. Last year, I developed an awful rash all over my body. I had just been diagnosed with depression less than 2 months before and started medicine. My primary care physician referred me to a dermatologist and she diagnosed me with psoriasis covering 70% of my body. We've been fighting my insurance all year to get an injections approved. It's super expensive, over $15,000 a month, and it just got approved. I went into the dermatologist's office to get my injections this week. Keep in mind I have spent no more than 10 minutes with this woman. She then proceeds to, in my opinion, berate next about my weight. She was saying things like, you know you won't be healthy if you don't lose some weight. Do you have diabetes? I bet you do. I said no, I don't. She replied, well, better have your doctor check again. Probably every 6 months. I would be surprised if you don't have it. And your cholesterol? I'm a big fan of the Mediterranean diet. You should try that. And etc. I was so stunned. She mentioned diabetes and my cholesterol multiple times. For what it's worth, both are fine. I'm big. Not stupid. I didn't say anything at the time because I felt like maybe I was just being sensitive. Later on I was telling a group of friends and they were upset that I didn't stand up for myself. I have asked my primary care physician to refer me to another doctor. When I called the derm's office to transfer files, they said the office would like to chat to me about why I am switching practices if I am comfortable speaking with them. So would I be the idiot if I told my derm that she doesn't even know me or why I'm like this, but she made a judgment and I don't feel comfortable with someone who doesn't even bother to know myself or my history treating me? I feel like I would be and should just leave quietly. My friends say otherwise. Not the idiot. You were there for a specific procedure. She wasn't your primary care physician and probably doesn't know your full medical history. It sounds like you already know what you need to do to part the weight and that you have been working with your primary care physician how to accomplish this until a new medical issue popped up. Just let the dermatology office know why you want to see a different specialist. This shouldn't be an issue unless they don't have another to assign you, unlikely. Not the idiot. I'm severely overweight and have been my whole life. I expect my doctors to talk about my weight somewhat because it is a legitimate health issue, but it does get really frustrating because I always feel like the way they talk to me is super condescending. Doctors often have no idea how much big people distrust them because of the way they are treated. It is important that they know and can reflect. You also don't have to tell them a thing if you don't want to. Not the idiot if you tell them. A lot of people in my family fight this battle with their doctors too. It causes them to get substandard treatment for things that are unrelated to weight, and after a while, it just becomes a dumb thing to say. Okay, doc, I did come in hoping for some antibiotics because I'm pretty sure I've got strep throat, but you're right, I'll go home this afternoon and lose 100 pounds because it's so quick and easy. I think this doc needs to hear this. You may be helping someone else down the line. My roommate, who I'll call Emily, and I, both 21, are college students, and we live in an off-campus apartment together. We split rent and utilities 50-50. I pay for my part myself, but Emily's parents pay for hers. Emily's mom is a bit overbearing and has a lot of rules for our apartment, the main one being that no boyfriends are allowed to sleep over, as it's against her religion. She specifically told Emily to have a talk with me about this subject to tell me this isn't allowed after we moved in. Emily doesn't care if I have my boyfriend over for the night, as she does it all the time without telling her parents. However, it strikes me the wrong way that Emily's mom feels like she can impose non-negotiable rules on me when she doesn't pay for any of my part of the bills. Today, Emily's parents are coming to visit and I expect her mom to go over all of the rules that she's set with me. Would I be the idiot if I told her mom that, with all due respect, I am paying my portion of the rent and she doesn't have any control of the things I do in my own apartment? On one hand, I feel like I'm justified. This woman is trying to impose her own religious beliefs onto me in an apartment that I pay half of the bills for. The idea of just rolling over and telling her that I'll obey her demands when just doing my own thing behind her back doesn't sit right with me. However, after speaking to my own mother about the subject, she thinks that it would be disrespectful. She says that even though I am paying for my half of the rent, Emily's family is still paying for this apartment and they should be able to have a say of what goes on, even if Emily and I just end up breaking those rules anyway. I've spoken to Emily about this subject and she doesn't care if I tell her mom that I will or will not be following those rules as long as I don't indicate that Emily breaks them. So, I was hoping to get some outside opinions here. What do you think? Would I be the idiot if I told my roommate's mom that I won't be following her rules in my apartment? Not the idiot. You're both adults and your roommate's mother needs to respect that, you and your home. If she starts talking about her rules, you stop her. Tell her that you are not having this conversation and that she, with all due respect, does not get a say. Excuse yourself, it was nice meeting you, but I have an appointment, and leave. Do not excuse or explain yourself any further. You are an adult and paying your own way, she is not entitled to more. Repeat after me. I am not having this conversation with you. Good luck. Not the idiot, but I would not engage. Let her spout her crap, but do as you want as you are an adult. I would not confront, as this gives the ammo against Emily. Don't jeopardize her well-being. If you view Emily as a friend and she is a chosen roommate, keep your lips zipped. If you state the obvious that they have no say as to what you do in your own apartment, they may make Emily move out as you would be a bad influence. So, protect your friendship and Emily by zipping the lips. You two just continue as you see fit as two grown adults once the parents depart. Not the idiot. Well, they are paying half the bills, so are you. They shouldn't be able to tell you how to live in your own apartment. However, I'd be prepared for Emily's family to then say, we will no longer be paying the other half of the bills. Can Emily afford to live in the apartment without her parents' help? Can you afford to take on the majority of the rent if they pull their financial support of Emily? A more diplomatic way of putting it is, I understand you expect your daughter to live a specific lifestyle.